I have here a Cobra 2221 1250 kV motor, the same one that I used on my previous mini Talon build, and also the same Hobbywing 40 amps Flyfun ESC with 5 amp back. Okay, I will be using the same back for powering the servo rails on my Pixracer, but for the FPV, the video transmitter, and the camera, I'll be using a power hub, a MATEKSYS power hub, to distribute the 5V power line and 12V power line on my video transmitter and camera. Here is a power module, Crius power module, capable of up to 8S, I suppose, if I'm not mistaken. And this will be connected to the Pixracer flight controller. So if you notice, I have braided the wires from the motor to the ESC. Soon I will be adding capacitors on this point of the XT60. Okay, so let's see how it goes. I have finished assembling this flight controller deck using CA glue. Okay, but before I mount it on the fuselage, I will be gluing the flight controller tray. Okay, so this is printed on PETG filament, I think 10% in fill, and it will be the floor of this flight controller deck. Okay, here it is. So I mounted the flight controller tray. This is a 3D print designed by Mark Qvale. I added rubber dampers between the retaining clip and the flight controller tray itself. Okay, right now I will be gluing this on the fuselage using a foam safe glue. Then what else? I will be preparing this 3D printed motor mount. Again, one of the designs of Mark Qvale. I will be installing some M3 nuts. Then I have all my 3D prints here. The flight controller, the Pixracer, is already set up and ready to be installed on this build number 2. I dry fitted the flight controller tray on this fuselage and temporarily held the fuselage together. So this is not yet glued. And just to show you something, I will be using this front skid, 3D printed, designed by Mark Qvale again, and I will be installing it here. Okay, so once I've installed it here, I won't be using this front wheel. And at the back of the fuselage, particularly in the tail, I won't be using the wooden landing skid here, but instead I will be installing this 3D printed rear skid. Okay, here's the main deck for the flight controller, and at the back we have this rear deck. Here I intend to put the GPS module, and underneath I'll strap here this Dragonlink UHF receiver that I got from FPV Pro. Okay, so all the receiving components will be at the rear part of the plane, and at the front I have there the transmitting components, which include the video transmitter. Okay, what else? From the main package, here are the parts that I won't be using: the rear skid, the motor mount, and the hatch locks for the screws, because I have them all 3D printed. of course for durability and modifications, but only this flight controller mounting will be kept as is. Also the FPV pod, which is wooden, won't be used because I have already printed my own canopy. Again, designs by Mark Qvale. Okay, so these are the ones that I'll be using for the main canopy. And for the hatch lock, I have a spring-loaded hatch lock, just like the one I used on the build number 1. So at the moment I am preparing the fuselage for mounting this flight controller tray and rear deck tray, but for the meantime I also added some gluing points for zip tie mounts, so this will keep the build clean. The wires are not dangling. By the way, I'm using this VTech contact adhesive that I bought from Handyman, one of the hardwares from the mall. I'll be using it as it is safe to use on foam, as I found out from my previous builds. While letting this fuselage set, I will be showing to you my MATEK power distribution board that has a 5-volt back and also a 12-volt BEC or back. So this will be powering my FPV, the camera and the video transmitter. So this one will be connected to the LiPo or the main battery pack, and these two leads will be going to the camera and the video transmitter. I'll soon be adding an LC filter right here to keep the video feed clean. Okay, so I guess I just have to wait for the glue to dry up a bit before we connect or mount these zip tie retainers. Okay, so I'll be back in a short while. Here's the update. I have already installed zip tie holders or retainers, which will be used to clean up the wires inside. And also I have already mounted the flight controller tray and the rear deck tray. So if you may notice, okay, this rear deck is mounted through this pivot point, meaning I can open this rear deck tray and connect or access whatever is beneath this rear deck, and also gives me the opportunity to place something underneath. So I have here in my mind, I plan to mount the UHF receiver down here and the GPS on top. And one of the benefits of having these zip tie holders is that these holders will also maintain this carbon fiber spar in its position. Okay. So some of the mini Talon frames that came had issues on these spars popping off. So if you have these zip tie holders, it will also hold the carbon fiber spar on its place. Okay, so it's nice to have these zip tie mounts in your plane. Okay, so this will hold the servo wires and the ESC wires and the VTX wires, But on the other side of the fuse, I also plan on putting some zip tie holders for the receiving component wires, such as for the GPS wires that I intend to place here. Okay. Here's the motor mount that I have printed on PETG 100% in fill. This will be holding the Cobra 2221 150 kV motor. And at the back of it, I have placed 4 stainless steel nuts, M3 sized. Then added a drop of CA glue on the sides just to make sure it won't move when I place the screws to this motor mount. These are not lock nuts, so I will be using blue thread locker that will secure or act like a locking mechanism for the screws and the nuts. And so right now I will be mounting this on the fuselage using the same foam safe glue that I used on the other parts. I laid out the components temporarily so you can have a brief look on how it will turn out later. I have installed the motor with 2 bolts holding the motor mount, and the motor mount rather, and the wires are braided. This will be lying on the fuselage floor. I'm thinking of putting a Velcro tape to hold the wires to the floor, and the servo wires from the V-tail will go to these zip tie holders and will pass through this flight controller tray. And underneath the flight controller tray, we have here the ESC. It will be held by a Velcro tape again, and the power module. This is the power module that will be connecting the main battery pack to the flight controller and providing power supply to the power distribution board. On top, we have here the Pixracer flight controller and the safety switch, and also the Wi-Fi module for the Pixracer flight controller. And by the way, this flight controller is one of a kind, a very rare item from Hobby King, because they immediately removed this Pixracer model from their online store due to legal issues, because they copied the AUAV version of this Pixracer and used the same labels on the board and as well as on the case. So technically this is not just your ordinary clone, but more of a counterfeit. Okay, but nonetheless, the flight controller is working very fine. I have tested this flight controller on my Freewing Pandora for several flights already, and without anything failing on the flight controller. So I'm more or less confident to place this Pixracer on the mini Talon build number 2. Okay. So I haven't connected the GPS yet and the receiver because I'm still preparing the other side of the fuselage and the V-tail yet to be connected on this main fuselage. Then we proceed on mounting the other parts for the VTX right after we close the fuselage hubs, and I think we're good to go. Here I got one of the V-tails and the servo that I will be using. This one is an Emax ES08 MA2, I suppose. Yes, that's correct. This is an analog metal gear servo, which is I think this is best bang for buck. Quite cheap but very handy. Performs really well on my other planes and never broke down. And here I got a few hinges for the control surfaces, so I'll be mounting 2 pieces of hinges here, so this will ensure that I have free movement from the control surfaces. One good thing about this Emax ES08 MA2 is that it fits very tightly on the V-tail and other servo pockets on the mini Talon, so you don't have to enlarge the servo pocket. You just have to put a piece of tape here, so you will have a closed surface and another tape underneath, just to hold the servo. You may not even need to add glue, but for safety reasons, I still add a piece of fiber tape underneath the servo, and it's good to go. And if you can see here, there is a slot for the wires to go through, so it will be tucked in here and it will go to the fuselage, extend to the flight controller. I added here a servo extension, of course, so it will be easier to remove in case I need to replace, and also extends the wires from the servo to the PWM output of the flight controller. Finished assembling this mount for the Dragonlink UHF receiver antenna, so this will go here, and we have the cable running to this pocket. Quite difficult to mount using one hand. Okay, so have it there, just like the setup on my first mini Talon build. The lower element will go running into this lower tail. Perhaps I can bend it a bit so there will be no exposed element, but in the first build it looks something like this. So I have here a portion of the element being exposed, but not really something to be worried about. And the other end of the dipole connector is going to run here to the receiver that is mounted here. So I'll just make a few loops of the wire, then tie it up, make everything clean, then connect it to the receiver underneath this rear deck tray. Okay, we have here the Dragonlink UHF receiver beneath the rear tray deck, and still we're going to place the GPS here, and the Dragonlink dipole is now glued on this part of the plane, waiting for the other half of the fuselage to be glued together. So right now this is what we've got. Okay, and the other side of the fuselage, I already installed the zip tie holders. So looking forward for finalizing this build, and let's see how it flies soon. Okay, so the lower part of the dipole is buried here, so you won't see any lower element poking beneath the fuselage. Right. So drive it. Okay, I can't close it up right now because I still need to work on the wirings for the servos and the V-tail, and of course the power distribution board that I will be using for the video transmission. It will be placed somewhere here, mounted by a velcro. Okay, we're making a progress on the mini Talon build number 2. If you notice, I have temporarily closed the fuselage halves, and what do we have here? We have here the spring-loaded hatch lock, just like in the first mini Talon that I built before. And down here we have here the NACA duct, again one of the designs of Mark Qvale. So this will help in cooling the electronic components as well as feeding air into the motor. Okay. So having this NACA duct also strengthens this hatch, because the weak point of the hatch is this spot. It tends to break on this part of the hatch. So if you have the NACA duct here, this will also act as reinforcement for the hatch. And also we have the V-tail here. I'm still thinking of how I can make the V-tail removable. Then I stumbled upon this aluminum stand-ups. Okay, so this will be placed here. I think I will be using 2 of these stand-ups, so I can connect it on the fuselage, then have a screw to hold the V-tail together. So hopefully this will work, and we'll see if everything goes as planned. Still the flight controller, then the GPS. So now the GPS is added on the plane, but I removed the enclosure to keep things compact and light. Then underneath is your Dragonlink UHF receiver that is connected to this dipole. Okay. So the wires are kept clean, tightened by the zip ties, and things to do is to add the airspeed sensor right here on this side, and the I2C splitter, as well as the pitot tube, which will be mounted on this side of the fuselage. Okay, one key progress on this build is the addition of the removable V-tail. Okay, so I have added this support plate, and of course the V-tail is secured by this hex screw, 2.5 mm. The center holder for the V-tail is an aluminum standoff, which as you can see, I mount in between the fuselage through this support plate, so it will hold very stable. And the BEC, 12 volt and 5 volt BEC for the FPV system, power module, ESC, and the braided wires and the servo connectors for the V-tail runs through this side of the fuselage. What else? The V-tail itself. So if you notice, I have installed hinges on the control surface. It will be freely moving with no restraints, of course. And the control horns with the back plate mount on the other side. So I don't use the stock servo as a stock control horns because stock control horns look like this. It will be mounted on one surface only, so it will not be that secured. That's why I don't use stock control horns on my build. Airspeed sensor, digital airspeed sensor for the Pixhawk or Pixracer. The micro minimosd and the Hobbywing Flyfun 40 amps ESC with 5 amps back. And of course, here is the I2C splitter and GPS hub for Pixracer, the safety switch, the buzzer over there, the Pixracer with with the Wi-Fi module on top, and of course the CUAV GPS module on the rear deck tray. And underneath we have the Dragonlink micro receiver with telemetry cable, so I don't need to use another telemetry radio module for transmission. And the wires or the extension wires for the V-tail, and of course the motor mount for the Cobra 2221 motor. I've already added the hinges for the control surface as well as the control horn with the backing plate. Before you work on the hinges, it's important that you have measured or pinpointed the exact mounting position of your control surface before you glue them together. Here I have my CA glue as well as this one, the mighty remover. It removes your CA glue in any unlikely event that you missed or you incorrectly mounted this control surface. It will be too difficult to remove the hinges from the foam without damaging it if you pull it by force. So this will come handy when you're working with your CA glue. Okay, I'll just finish the other wing and mount them together, then perhaps I can finish gluing the fuselage hubs. I've just finished applying glue on the fuselage hubs and just waiting for it to dry up a bit before closing these hubs together. The servos are ready, control surfaces and hinges are already installed, fiber tapes for support already added. The only thing left to do is to close the fuselage, mount the airspeed sensor on the left side of the fuse, and connect the pitot tube on the left side of the fuse. Then connect the rubber hose to this airspeed sensor module. The hubs are glued together, hatch locks secured, V-tail also secured by this bolt, and the wings are secured using the bolt underneath, and of course aileron and V-tail connected to the flight controller. Then install the 3D printed parts for the front skid and rear skid. So far, everything went well as planned, and I'm excited to get this bird flying and see how she goes. Hopefully, this mini Talon build is a lot better than my first build. Hopefully, this will be faster, lighter, and more efficient. And by the way, again, I placed a Pixracer flight controller on this plane, while on my first build I had an Eagle 3 Vector OSD. So both flight controllers are good, decent, and they're really trusted. And I hope to make a comparison video between the flight characteristics of the two birds that I've made. This is the alpha build of build number 2, so almost ready for maiden. What's needed is to recheck the electronics, particularly the Autopilot firmware, and see if the control surfaces are working as it should be. And I have already mounted the landing skids, and at the back and in front. So right now there's still packing tape to keep the front landing skid and rear landing skid attached to the frame while the glue settles down. And if you notice here, here's the airspeed sensor. I won't be using it on the maiden, so I did not mount the pitot tube yet. Soon I will add it after the maiden. So everything is okay. Where's our duct? And what else? So side by side with my build number 1. They look awesome. The front canopy is not yet mounted. I'll still work on the mounting of the canopy, but nonetheless, everything went well. Really well, especially the wiring. So I tried to keep it clean. So I don't know yet the all-up weight of the setup, but I will be flying it on 4S, while the other one is on 3S. And again, the first build is on Eagle 3 Vector, and the second build is running on Pixracer with Autopilot firmware. Almost finished. I mounted the fatshark FPV camera, glued the 3D printed part, as well as the canopy hatch, canopy lock. Then the video transmitter. This is the Lite 1.3 GHz 1 watt, but I will be replacing it soon with a ready-made RC 800 milliwatts instead. This is mounted on a lightweight VTX mount or VTX saddle, and of course the canopy itself. So this canopy will be holding a HD camera, or an HD camera rather, right there. So this is a bolt-on type FPV pod. So I can easily replace it with other canopy if I wanted to. I printed several canopies, all of which are designed by Mark Qvale, and seems that all of his designs are really awesome. So if I won't be using the HD camera, I can replace it with this cover. So it's still streamlined, and it will go through or pierce through your wind in any type of the day. Okay, so the only thing left to install is the pitot tube right here, just like on my first mini Talon build. Okay, so it will be here. Finally, the beta build is ready. I got here the airspeed sensor pitot tube with the rubber hose running through this side of the fuselage. So I made 2 by 1 centimeter hole for the rubber hose, and for this I printed the pitot tube mount using a PETG filament at 50% in fill. Hopefully this will last for quite some time. Most of the time the problem is during landing. Some plants may or shrubs may get tangled here on this part, and that will be receiving a lot of impact. Again, this is the beta build, ready for maiden.